And it's Matthew 22, verse 17, verse 15, actually. Then the Pharisees went and plotted together how they might trap him in what he said. Okay, so doesn't that sound like a trick question? All right. And then they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in truth and defer to no one, for you are not partial to any." All right. Does that sound like they're buttering him up in some way, trying to kind of get him to feel confident in them and comfortable with them? All right. Who could tell me who the Herodians were? Because it mentions these guys in this passage. Herodians, anybody know? Herodians? Yeah? Nobody knows? Nathan, are you allowed to answer?
Yeah.
I thought you were in 13th grade.
Well, going into 13th grade.
Oh, okay, so you're technically still allowed?
Yeah.
All right, I'll allow this,
Okay.
just this once.
Were they Greeks?
We don't know. Probably not, though. Was Herod a Greek? No. So probably related to Herod in some way. Any other guesses? The truth is that we really don't know who these people were, but they probably were followers or disciples or people that liked what Herod was doing. For some reason, they're connected to the Pharisees in this passage, and they're part of this plot to come in and talk to Jesus. All right? So they kind of butter him up, and they asked the question. Okay, so here's the trick question. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to give a poll tax to Caesar or not? Is it lawful to give a poll tax to Caesar or not? So let's think about what it is here. Who knows what a poll tax is? Anybody know what that is? No? Do any of you guys pay taxes? Do you know what taxes are? No? Do any of you have a job where you get a paycheck? Okay? And in your paycheck, do you get all the money you're supposed to get?
No.
No. Do you get most of the money you're supposed to get?
No.
No. Okay, so for those of you who don't have a real job yet, you haven't figured out just how much comes out in taxes. All right? So payroll taxes and all kinds of other things are involved there. A poll tax is not part of your paycheck. It's not payroll taxes. Any other guesses on what a poll tax is? Okay, some of your taxes are based on income, but once in a while there's a tax that's just a per person tax. So everybody in the whole society pays the same amount of money. It's kind of like a tax that happens when there's a census where they're counting the people. And so every single person that comes to the census has to pay $10 or $100 or whatever that poll tax would be. And in their society, usually the poll tax was issued by the government, meaning the Romans, and then the actual tax collector tacked on his percentage to that as well. And so paying taxes was not a happy experience, even less happy than you're going to feel when you get your first paycheck. Okay? So it's basically a tax. Do the people of Israel, are they happy about paying taxes in general to the Romans? Why not? Other than it's your money and you don't want to give it up, why would they not be happy about the Romans? Did they like the Romans? No? Is everybody here? Is that a hand? When I was a kid, I used to go to the cattle auction with my grandfather, and he would give me specific instructions when I entered. Do not make any sudden movements or raise your hand, or you might get called upon to buy a cow, right? Okay, so who were the Romans? Somebody's got to help me out here. Who were the Romans? They're like the bad occupying guys that came in and took them over peacefully? No, by force, right? So they take them over and they're ruling, and so the Jewish people there in Palestine are paying taxes out to this government that's far away, and the government pretty much is oppressing them in many ways. And so they're not just unhappy about taxes, they're unhappy about being taxed by an outside government that's controlling them. Okay, so let's look at the question again. All right, it says this. Tell us, what do you think? Is it lawful to give a poll tax to Caesar or not? Okay, so what are our options here? What's one way Jesus can answer this question? Is it lawful to pay taxes or not? Is it the right thing to do to pay taxes or not? What do you think? Somebody give me an answer. What would you do? If you were Jesus and you're on the spot and they ask you this question, what would you say? Brett. Grant. No. That's cheating if you've read ahead. So if you say that, then I'll know you've been cheating. Oh, you haven't? Okay. What do you think? What would you say if you were Jesus' spot? So yes. Okay. So let's say we say yes. Who agrees? Raise your hand if you agree with Grant, and you say yes, you should pay taxes. Because you probably already read Romans 13 that says that you should be obedient to the governing authorities. Okay, so that was like a quarter of you raised your hand. Does that mean 3/4 of you haven't read Romans 13? What do you think? Let's see it again. Yes, we should pay taxes. All right, so I convinced. So there's some of you that would advocate for the answer no then, right? Does that mean the rest of you would say no, or you want to abstain from this vote? Okay? Raise your hand if you would say no, it's not okay to pay taxes. Okay, all the rebellious ones. Okay. All right, good. Okay, good work. Okay. All right, so let's just think about this for a second, okay? Let's just say that Jesus answers the way Grant answers, and the majority of you guys answer, and says, yes, you should pay taxes to the Roman government. What's going to happen if Jesus answers that way? Think about the dynamics, okay? They're in a public place, okay? Someone besides Grant. What's going to happen, Ellie? Okay, and do they like the Romans? They do not, okay? What is Jesus, I mean, he's coming in. A lot of people are believing in Jesus. They're seeing him as maybe the potential Messiah. Okay, what was the Messiah supposed to do? Save them. And a lot of people thought he was supposed to save them from the Romans, right? And a lot of people didn't believe that Jesus was really the Messiah because ultimately he doesn't do that, right? So if Jesus says yes, he is basically going to be hated by the people of Israel, right? Because they already hate the Romans, okay? So if he says yes, they're gonna hate him. He's also going to be saying and putting himself under the authority of the Romans. And Jesus is God, right? And so it would lessen his standing. He would be proclaiming a lesser standing than what was true of him. So it would be pretty bad if he says, yes, you should pay taxes. Okay? So that's obviously not an answer that he can give. All right, but what if he says, okay, Emma, you said no, he shouldn't, right? You're sticking with that answer? Okay. If he says no, the consequences could be even greater. Question?
No.
You want to support the no answer too? No? Okay.
I was going to say why you shouldn't say no.
Why you should? Okay, good. We need to know why. What's going to happen if he says no?
If he says no, then he's going against the government, which is ultimately sin.
It is. Yeah, I don't know if I would say it's a sin, but we call it treason, right? Depending on, there are times when you can disobey the government when it's not sin, but most of the time it would be if you read Romans 13. What's the Roman government going to do to him if he says, no, you shouldn't pay taxes? The people are going to love it, but what is the Roman government going to do potentially? Anna? Put him in prison. They could do that. What are some other options that they have at their disposal? Yeah. They could kill him, yeah. So they're not really in the business of holding lots of prisoners. They'd rather just kill them and make an example out of them, right? That would be easier. The Romans had a way of doing that. It's called crucifixion, okay? It would have kind of sped up the process a little bit, potentially, if you'd answered that way. What's some other potential options that they could have done? Over the top of Anna.
They could have flogged him.
Okay, they could have beaten him, whipped him. Probably more likely in that society for something of an offense of that level, they would have forced him to join the military. Roman soldiers, that's a lot of the Roman soldiers were actually kind of people that were in trouble, and they were forced into military service. So lots of options. All of them would have changed the course of what Jesus was going to do. Okay? So the Jewish leaders, we know from some other passages in the New Testament, they were really hoping for option number 2, which was no. Because they really wanted Jesus to be taken care of by the Roman authorities and just gotten out of their hair. Okay? So he was causing lots of problems. Alright, so let's jump down to verse 18. It says, but Jesus perceived their malice, okay? Meaning he understands kind of, he's seeing what's going on here. He sees their malice and he says, why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Everybody knows what a hypocrite is? Okay? We're all hypocrites, right? So we all know what that is. And he says, show me a coin used for the poll tax. All right, who's got a quarter or a penny or any money of any kind? Okay, we're gonna do a lot of money exchanging here today. All right, come on up. I need anything that's a coin. $100 bill will work just fine. Bring that up.
My eyes.
You can just take it out and take a look at it from there. Okay. What do you get? What do you have there? That's not your average coin. Okay. Is there any human beings on that coin? No pictures of humans? Oh, the one coin that we don't want. Anybody have any other coins? Okay. What does it have on there? Whose face? Some famous guy, right? Who's probably dead. Right? Okay. So he asks them to get out a coin, the same kind of coin that you would use to pay the tax. All right, I'll just give you a little aside here. That's just a tip, a word of advice. When someone asks you a really hard question, you should probably answer with a question. All right. Number one, it gives you the opportunity to think a little more. Number two, it allows them to further explain or work on their question. So lots of good things happen with questions. Jesus does a lot of questions. Perceiving their malice, okay, so he says, show me the coin, and they brought him a coin, okay, a coin that actually had a human being's face on it, not a Mexican coin, but a real coin, okay, and it had the likeness of Caesar on the coin, all right, and so he says to them, he says, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. So did he answer yes, or did he answer no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, he answered yes. So if he answered yes, do all the bad things that happen when you answer yes to this question happen? Why not? Hudson, louder.
He answered another question too.
Sort of. Okay, he's saying a lot more than just yes or no. All right, so just a simple yes or no probably wouldn't have been a good idea, but he does say that we should pay the tax. Okay, that is true, and he says that because he says this is Caesar's money to begin with, and we're just giving back to him what's already his. So that's the yes part of the question. Why does he say the second part of the answer here? And to God the things that are God's. There's several answers to why, but why do we think he says the second part? I'll give you one part of it. It places authority where authority is supposed to be. He's not putting himself under the authority of the Roman government, which would have been problematic for the people that were listening. Okay? That's one part of it. So what's some other parts to why he would say the second part of this question?
I know.
Go ahead.
Birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, birthday.
I'm having trouble understanding you.
Yeah, birthday.
Carolyn, are you interpreting for me? Okay.
Right. Right.
Is he lying?
Right, Paul.
Yeah.
You're so
Okay.
wrong.
Okay.
let's keep thinking. What are some other reasons? What's he saying here? To God, the things that are God. Why does he add that to this answer? Why is that important to this answer? What's he saying in that answer?
I don't know.
Okay. Say it again. Let's see if I can get it.
Mommy.
Mom,
Mommy got a gate.
Mom and Dad gave.
No.
No?
Gate.
Gate?
Mama got married.
Okay. They get married.
Mom. Mommy got married. Together.
Married together. Okay.
Yeah.
And when they get married, what happens?
Mommy got love.
Love?
Kiss her.
Okay. So
Kiss.
so let me take what you're thinking a little bit further and say, when mom and dad get married
Yes.
and they have a child
Yes.
in marriage, the child looks like exactly half of what the dad looks like and exactly
Yes.
half of what the mom looks like, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So that's sort of true. I actually have a couple of kids that are my children in here tonight. Do you know that? And they look exactly like half of me, right?
I know.
Mostly look like my wife, okay, thankfully. So we could say that sometimes when you walk up to a child that's been born of a mother and a father, you kind of recognize them and say, you are Paul and Kim Stone's child, right? Maybe. Okay, so you're sort of in the likeness of your parents. So think about that idea. Think about that idea when Jesus says here, and to God the things that are God's. Okay, because Jesus is in the context talking about the picture or the likeness of Caesar on the coin.
I know Jesus.
What has the likeness of God on it?
Eat it.
Are you saying each of us?
No, eat it. Eat it. Get it.
Okay, let's let somebody else answer, all right?
Everything has God, like,
To some extent, because he's the creator, yes, but there are certain things in this world that are particularly in his likeness.
Pause, you remain answer.
Okay, so when we go back to the beginning, we read in Genesis that it says that each one of us are created in the image of God. When God says to and render to God the things that are God's, you might think, well, that's why we take an offering in church, right? So some money goes to Caesar in taxes, some money goes to God through an offering. But that's not what I think God is talking about here. He's talking about the way you and I were created. So none of us look alike exactly, but I can tell that each one of you are created in his image. Male, female, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you look like or don't look like. You're all created in that image. So when God says to us, render to God the things that are God's, what is he asking you to do? Render to God the things that are God's. What is he saying to you in that statement, in that answer to that question? Anna.
give back to God what is his.
Okay, so define what is his.
Like, we are God's creation, so we should give the glory back to him.
Okay, that's some of what we could give back to him. Is that all? That's there. What else could we give to God? Yeah.
Our life by like living in his image and like
Okay, like everything. Yeah, like everything. Okay, so I kind of think about it. Obviously, I have a couple of kids. I actually have 4 kids, and it's been a couple years since I was in high school. But I can tell you that when I was in high school, I wasn't thinking about doing things for God or giving my life for God. I was thinking about doing things for me. All right? And I'll tell you a quick story. Justin said this goes till 9 o'clock, right? Okay. Quick story. When I was a freshman in high school, I was playing basketball. Okay? And basketball basketball was a very, very important thing to me in life. And I was spending all of my time working and practicing and trying to get better at basketball. And my dad, on a Sunday afternoon, I think he was sort of observing kind of what was going on in my life, and he was recognizing that pretty much everything revolved around basketball. And you guys might have something in your life that everything revolved around, and it might be basketball, but it's probably something else. And so my dad asked me this question, and he said, what's more important, God or basketball? Okay, so some of you might know that my father was a pastor. Okay, so as a good pastor's son, I answered that question the way it's supposed to be answered, which was, of course, God is more important than basketball, right? But I knew that I was lying, right, to my dad. But for some reason he believed me. He didn't believe me any other time that I lied to him when I was a kid. He always caught me, but for that time he let it go for one reason or another. And that Tuesday night, I was playing in a basketball game, and I was guarding a guy full court, and I was going back and forth, and I was really trying to steal the ball. And this guy turned, like kind of a reverse pivot dribble, and he was protecting the ball, and he brought his elbow up into the side of my nose. All right, and if you look carefully at my nose, you'll see that it's crooked, because that was the first of 3 times that I broke it playing basketball. Okay? In that split second, my basketball game was over, and I actually had to sit out for a whole month because of that broken nose. And I couldn't help but go back and think, like, was that related in any way to the question my dad had asked me? And it kind of got me thinking about, you know, even though I may choose for myself what I think is most important, and I may choose with the creation that I am in the image of God, I may still choose to honor myself and to seek to do what I want with my life. But so easily and so quickly, God could just adjust me. And in that case, he just adjusted my nose, and then it healed a little bit, and then I had to go back to the doctor, and he adjusted it back. That was even worse than breaking it the first time, because that was like slow motion breaking your nose backwards. Okay? So I'm going to read for you guys a story, because I think that you might think like, wait, you know what, I'm just in high school, I'm sort of just getting used to this life, my parents are really in charge. Maybe you don't think that, maybe you think you're really in charge, but your parents are really in charge. If you're confused about that, I can talk to you afterwards. You might not think you can do anything in this world as it relates to give to God what is God's, and you might very easily just be thinking about not doing that, because there's so much of our world that's kind of like, do whatever feels good, whatever makes you happy, you know, follow your heart. All those kinds of ideas are out there, and so you may, whether you know it or not, you may sort of be doing some of those things and following kind of what you want, and instead of giving God what is God's. Okay? And I'm going to read you a story about a couple of high school girls who chose not to do what was comfortable, but chose to stand up with their life, with their body and everything, stand up in front of other people and stand up for God. And in this particular case, it works out well. But there'll be many times when you can choose to give to God what is God's, and it won't work out well. It'll be a very tough experience. Okay, but I'm going to read you the story because I want you to think about, you know, this idea isn't for someday when you're graduated from college, or someday when this is true, or that's true, or when you're as old and as responsible as Justin is, okay? It's not for those days. It could be for tomorrow. Even if you're in 7th grade, you're just going into 7th grade, you never know when an opportunity to honor God will arise, okay? So I'm going to read the story for you. Megan and Mandy were graduating high school on Friday night. This is back in 2006. Happened back in 2006. Megan had been selected to conduct a prayer during the ceremony. Friday morning, a federal judge issued an order barring Russell County High School and Megan, she was cited in the order by name, from conducting prayer during commencement. With graduation just around the corner and her entire life ahead of her, Megan faced a difficult choice. Can you imagine how you would feel to read your name in a federal lawsuit filed by the ACLU? As Megan wrestled with her decision, Mandy, these are twins by the way, Megan and Mandy, Mandy began to formulate a plan of her own. At 4 p.m., Only 3 hours before the graduation ceremony, Megan received a phone call from Liberty Counsel, an organization devoted to protecting religious freedom. Liberty Counsel's founder and chairman, Matt Staver, told Megan they'd be behind her every step of the way and counseled her that God can turn apparent adversity into great opportunity when we're willing to trust Him and obey Him. Only a few hours later, more than 3,000 people packed into the Russell County High School gymnasium to watch 200 seniors graduate. As the principal finished his opening remarks, the senior class suddenly stood as one body and began to read the Lord's Prayer. Before they could finish, the audience erupted in a thunderous applause. Some students were too overcome with emotion to finish, but the statement had been made. They would not bow down to the ACLU. Then Megan came to the podium prepared to deliver a secular poem, The Road Less Traveled. But when she looked out at the large audience and the hundreds of seniors who had just completed the Lord's Prayer, she asked God to give her a message. You did not put me here to recite the poem, Lord. Putting aside what she prepared, Megan spoke from her heart. She shared how God had led her since she was a child, spoke of peace that comes from giving your life to Jesus, and wished her classmates the same peace through a relationship with Jesus Christ. Again and again the speech was interrupted with applause and punctuated by several standing ovations. The Louisville Courier-Journal reported covering the event described the event as having a revival-like atmosphere, to the complete dismay of the ACLU, in trying to silence the prayer that had sparked the revival. The following morning, Megan received a call from Fox News, and that night she shared her story of personal salvation through Jesus Christ with millions of viewers. That same afternoon, Matt Staver spoke with Dr. Jerry Falwell, founder and then Chancellor of Liberty University, and he authorized to offer Megan a full scholarship to join the 2006 freshman class. Upon hearing the good news, Megan was overwhelmed with tearful amazement. Are you kidding? She asked. I've been praying for several years to be able to attend Liberty University, but I simply could not afford it. But to Mr. Stover's bewilderment, Megan did not immediately accept the offer. He was puzzled. Mr. Stover called her a few days later, and the voice that he heard sounded like Megan. When he answered the phone, he said, Megan? He asked. No, this is Mandy, your twin sister, the voice replied. Mandy, he found out, was the one who orchestrated the recitation of the Lord's Prayer, distributing bookmarks with a copy of the prayer on it in case anyone forgot the words. Mr. Stover immediately called Dr. Falwell. Guess what? He said, Megan has a twin sister. Dr. Falwell paused briefly and offered Mandy a full scholarship as well. The twin sisters, who had been planning to attend the University of the Cumberlands together, now had an open door to their first choice. So these are two young ladies who decided, at the same age you guys are, to stand up in a secular high school. Many of you guys go to public high school. Many of you are involved in situations that aren't Christian. You're here at a Christian youth group tonight, but there's so many different places that you end up in life where you're not in that position. And it's very easy to think, I want to do what makes me feel comfortable, or what's easy for me, or what I want to do. God is asking us to render to Him the things that are His. And that's all of us, right? That's each and every one of us. I think about it as it relates to Justin, who comes in here each week and teaches you guys. And I think about, him as a 12th grader when I met him first teaching here. And I would say, just by watching his life develop, that he is chosen over and over to be God's instrument, okay? And you guys get to benefit from that. Think of all the potential people that you might interact with as you grow up, as you get older, all the opportunities that you have to have an impact on other people's lives if you render to God what is God's. So you have examples like Justin, like Brett. There's other people around as well that have consistently displayed that character and that desire. But it's a challenge to you guys because it's not going to be easy. All right? Do you think it was easy for these young ladies to do what they did? No. Did they expect the audience to respond the way they did? No. there's going to be reasons to be afraid. Okay. So I just want to encourage you guys to think not about this life being for you, but to think about this life being about God and about rendering to Him and giving to Him yourself. Okay? I'm going to close in prayer.